Okay, hello YouTube and YouTube subscribers. Today we're going to be talking about the one thing that most aquarists have to deal with at a certain time, and that is algae, or particularly algae blooms. Now, the one thing I do want to discuss is that does algae mean that you have bad water? The short answer of that is no. Usually when you have an algae bloom, it's because you had an excess of a particular nutrient, and the nutrient that usually causes algae blooms is phosphorus. Excess phosphorus usually increases algae for a simple reason of this. Phosphorus regulates the growth of pretty much all organisms because it's used in synthesis of DNA. So if you don't got any phosphorus, you don't grow, you don't live. And the reason why algae tend to proliferate when there's an excess amount of phosphorus is because they have the highest affinity for it, which means they will use that excess phosphorus before your plants will, before anything else in the aquarium will actually. So because of that, if you have an excess amount of phosphorus, you'll get a algae bloom, and the algae bloom will quickly take over, and it can stunt the growth of all the other plants because simply the algae are outcompeting the plants for that phosphorus. So your water quality can actually be good. Your nitrates and nitrites can be in good levels, but just having that slightly higher phosphorus level can end up causing you to have an algae bloom. And basically the best way to get rid of that is to constantly do water changes over and over and over again until your phosphorus levels go back down. Sometimes your phosphorus levels can increase because some rocks that you put in your aquarium, they might be contaminated with phosphorus. And I think phosphorus tends to give stuff kind of a pinkish tone when it's in there, but I'm not too sure about that. And that dissolves slowly out into water. And another thing that's kind of interesting that can also cause algae blooms is one thing that you often get in newer tanks is you get brown algae growing on the aquarium. And the reason for that is because in a new aquarium, it hasn't had water in it, right? And your aquarium is sealed with silicone. Now, some of that silicone will leach into water. And brown algae, in particular, they have a high affinity for silicone because they use it to make little shells that they live in. So that's one of the reasons why you'll have a algae bloom often when in a new tank. Well, brown algae bloom in a new tank, simply because they have that high affinity for silicone. So remember, keep in mind that just because your tank has some algae problems doesn't mean your aquarium water is dirty. Your aquarium water could be excellent, yet you could still have algae. And it's good to have some algae in your tank because it helps keep down nitrogen and stuff like that. But the problem with algae is it can be displeasing. You know, you guys all know that I've been battling algae in this tank. And I'm not winning yet, but I'm getting better. I actually removed more of it today. I didn't remove as much as I did last time, simply because I just didn't have as much algae growing. So the thing is that phosphorus is kind of one of the hardest nutrients in your tank to balance, simply because you can end up getting an excess of it super easily. So thanks for watching. Please rate, comment, and subscribe.